it's very easy to do the 60-hour week, for a chef, especially when you have the passion. But I definitely, it's very important to just have that time for yourself and for life.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. It's the summer series of Deep in the Weeds, and today we're joined by a chef that's appeared on Dirty Linen and Deep in the Weeds and dished up some inspired conversations, and it's an absolute pleasure to have back on the show Lorena Corso. How are you?
Hi, Huck. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well, thank you.
It seems like every time one of us on the network talks to you, you're doing something different, and here you are again. What are you up to at the moment?
Well, it's been a bit of an interesting 2024 for me. I've had some health issues, but I'm doing much better now. So I have had to kind of slow down almost to zero my cooking career. But since I feel better now, I've got some exciting, cute little projects coming up, I guess. I've been meeting up with Femme Crew, who's a group for women and non-binary and women identifying people in the hospitality business. And we'll be discussing, basically like giving more space and more of a voice to this group of people that can often be marginalized. So we're planning to do a big event in February. So definitely watch this space for dates and locations. It will include a lot of wine and barbecue food, obviously cooked by me and some other people in the business. So it should be fun. And then I'm probably going to join some guys. Unfortunately, I can't give too much details away, as in like for an actual job, because it's all yet to, come out. So I need to kind of be respectful of that. Like a new sort of, head chef, executive chef position coming up, and join this great couple doing great things in Melbourne. So I will be back on the scene basically, and hopefully stay there for a while longer, alongside my million other little projects, like working at the farm with Force of Nature, and doing more foraging with them, hopefully in like autumn and winter, doing little markets, farmers markets with them. And then I have been talking to a friend regarding hopefully organizing a trip, basically like a tour on food and wine mainly, and relax in Sicily. So we're kind of like working towards organizing this tour, and people can join from any part of the world, but hopefully we can get people from Australia to go and join us there, and then we will be driving people around Sicily, probably just the west side of it, because I feel like it's a little bit less known to the Australians. The Australians tend to travel to the east side, like Catania and those areas, but not so much like Palermo, where I'm from. And I feel like I can, I can like provide a really interesting tour, kind of off the beaten track, and go to places where a tourist wouldn't normally go. That's the whole point. And hopefully do some cooking while I'm, driving around as well. So yeah, that's what's on the diary.
It sounds jam-packed. At the top of the show, you mentioned some health issues that you needed to get through. Did it make you rethink sort of how you approach your career in hospitality and what you want to do sort of as you moved forward and started to feel better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so basically I was diagnosed with breast cancer in January 2024. And I had to obviously, do chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgery, and I had to spend so much time at home and recovering and looking after myself. And, I had to accept this, not just like, oh, you got cancer, what are you going to do now? But also like accept what you're going to do while you do the chemotherapy. So I think, I speak for myself when I say it's really hard for a chef or anyone that is so used to working so much and very independent, to like ask for help and accept it, So I just had to kind of like shift my view and be vulnerable and just be like, okay, I can't do anything for the next 6, 9, 10 months, a year, and I just need you guys' help. And, it was hard at the beginning, but, I've got such a good support network in Melbourne and outside of Melbourne, especially from the hospitality industry. And so I just had to do what I had to do. And in the meantime, I guess I finally had that break that I probably have never taken before, to just properly like sit there and think about what is that I want to do with my life and, the priorities and what makes me happy and everything. And it was a bit of a roller coaster, because initially I was like, okay, maybe I should just stop cooking, like this is too much for me. But then I was like, no, actually, I do want to continue cooking, but I just need to like dose it right, and not just do too much of it and burn out, basically. And I guess just finding a way to still enjoy cooking, because it's something that I do want to do for the rest of my life, but also have little side projects that will keep me interested into the world in general, and so like the farming is definitely one, and organizing this tour in Sicily is another one. And I guess just like finding the time and allocating time to all these side projects that I'm sure a lot of cooks have, So yeah, that's what I've been through and what I'm kind of still going through. And I definitely want to like stay focused on this and not get swept up in the business again, because it's very easy to do the 60-hour week, for a chef, especially when you have the passion. But I definitely, it's very important to just have that time for yourself and for life in general and for all these little hobbies and things that everybody has, Yeah.
I think that's some wonderful advice for anyone, even if they haven't been through something as traumatic as something that you experienced. Some of the conversations that I remember fondly that I've had with you and Danny had with you as well on Dirty Linen sort of veered around travel and food. Do you have any sort of food travel stories you can share with us?
Absolutely, I do. Mine are probably a little bit controversial. They're not necessarily around fine dining. They're more just places, I guess, where it's more like places where I found a real connection with the people there, and also good food. I mean, that's obviously a given. So I've done quite a little bit of traveling around Australia on my time off, in the past 7 years since I've been here. And it is sometimes really hard to find good food, especially when you travel in the bush or like regional. You often tend to just get the same pie and everywhere you go in Australia, which is it's both like unique and, it's like, how can you have the same product all over Australia? Like, that's actually quite impressive, to deliver this to people. But then it is the same product. So it gets quite boring and it's just carbs and sugar, I'm sure there's more to it. And I must say, I was very, very skeptical at first. But then on one of my, I guess, latest travels was to South Australia. And I drove from Melbourne down to, Adelaide and then down to the Eyre Peninsula because of the famous seafood trail that you can do. And because I wanted to go and see like an oyster farm and see how everything works and, what they do, and go to national parks and just have a lot of seafood because I love seafood. And I stumbled across this little town on the coast called Cowell. And it was a rainy day, and I was like, oh my God, there's a fish and chip shop over there. It's just a kiosk, and it's literally called the box kiosk. Very simple, very straightforward, just like your fish and chips. They also obviously have oysters, like from around the corner. And, they had chowder. So I was like, oh my God, I really feel like chowder. So I tried the chowder, I tried the oysters, and I was like, okay, this place is good. Like, it's super simple, only one man operation. Oysters super fresh. The chowder was amazing. The guy smokes the fish himself and then puts it through the chowder. So it was just like very simple but full of flavor. And then we got talking, and he understood I'm a chef, so he was like, "Oh, I just bought this pie maker, and I've just made some pies. They're not for sale, but would you like to try one?" And I was like, "Of course, I'm not gonna say no to that." And he didn't say what it was. He just said like a pie, and I was like, maybe savory. I don't know. So this pie comes out, and we cut it in half. Me and my ex-partner, we try it. And I'm just like, oh my God, like what is in this pie? Like, it was like the umami flavor was insane. Like, that umami that I never had before. Like, I have a lot of umami based food, but that specific one, I was like, this is something different, but also I can taste the old school in it. And I could tell it was minced beef pie, so like your classic Aussie pie. And I'm not the biggest fan of minced beef, but I was like, what did you put in here that it's so tasty and it's not dry? And it's just like, what's in it? Like, it's not about spices. There's something else in here. And then he said, well, I smoked some oysters, and then I blended the oysters with with the minced beef and, the garlic and the onions. And I was like, smoked oysters. That's it. I was like, that was it, And he gave me the recipe and the ratio. I mean, I understand why it was so umami, because it was basically 500 grams of minced beef to about a dozen smoked oysters. I was like, okay, that's why it tastes so good, like next level. And then I did a quick research, and smoked oysters and beef, it's a very old school English recipe for pies. And I'm like, why is it not more popular? Like, this should be in every pie shop in Australia, I think. Yeah, exactly. So I love this so much, and I was like, this is insane. And then I carried on with my driving down the coast, and I said, I'm going to be driving back up again, and I should be here Sunday. And he's like, I'll make more pies for you. So then I went back 3 days later, and he had more pies for me. So good. So that was just like, next level hospitality for me in Cowell in South Australia.
That is one to write down. That is amazing. You've had sort of travels all around the world. Do you have any other food stories you can share with us?
Of course. So last year, as in like 2023, I went to I went to Sicily to see my family, and I stopped in Rome for 3 days on arrival. And I hadn't been in Rome in so long. And, there's a lot of good places in Rome, but there's probably too many. And sometimes it can be quite overwhelming for a tourist to find a good place. And you often get disappointed because you just go to like wherever you go, But I was lucky enough to know people there, and they're like, okay, you got to go to this place and that place. And I actually met up with my nephew there. So I wanted to take him out somewhere kind of, fine dining-ish, fancy, casual fine dining. And one of my best friends used to work at Retro Bottega in Rome. And basically it is a quirky place, kind of casual fine dining, But they do so much foraging all around Rome, like almost daily. They just go out there and just get all these, native herbs and anything from around Rome and the mountains around. And you can really taste it in every dish. And calling it fine dining, I think is wrong. I think it's like creative and imaginative cooking, and everything was super fresh and just like bright colors. I remember having this watercress, like native watercress velouté, like a cold watercress soup with scooped oysters in it. And, very simple, kind of like 2 or 3 ingredients again. But because everything was like so fresh and local, it was just like the perfect, sort of summer soup to have, cold soup with fresh oysters in it. Again, it's not very popular. You don't see it around very much. But I was like, this is awesome. And then like a little gazpacho with poached langoustine, but not like a lot of langoustine, just like a couple of pieces to, complement the tomato. It was more about the tomato rather than the fish, And so I thought that was such a great place. And the price point really surprised me. I thought it was going to be very expensive, but it was kind of like when you go to a wine bar in Melbourne and you have a good meal. It was that. So that was such a good place, Retro Bottega in Rome. And then I went down to Sicily, where I'm from, and one of my dearest friends, I used to work with him back in the day, opened a restaurant over 10 years ago now, or maybe even longer. And it's just called Mirko's Ristorante. And it's mainly seafood, obviously, because it's Castellammare del Golfo, which is a town on the seaside near where I'm from. And, he's traveled a lot. So what he did for the first 5 years of it, from opening the restaurant, was to spend one season of the year elsewhere and learn cooking elsewhere. So it's been in America, it's been in the UK, and he's also been here in Melbourne. And, it's just like picked up ideas. And you can see throughout his menu that it's still very traditional and local of Sicily, but you'll see that difference and that kind of like thinking outside the box. And as many of you know, arancini is such a staple food in Sicily. So he had arancini on the menu, but the filling, rather than being your classic, ragu of meat or like cheese and ham, or, he had octopus ragu. So I thought that was, genius and super tasty. And it just served this like giant bowl of arancini with potato velouté and just the octopus ragu in the middle. Super rich, but then, with the potato velouté at the bottom, like octopus and potatoes, we all know it's such a good combo. It was great. And also all the pastas that he makes, But I just thought that was like the best combo of like having an humble arancini on the menu, but with octopus ragu instead of meat ragu. I thought that was great. So yeah, that's another place I recommend.
A little bit earlier on in the conversation, you mentioned the trips that you're organising to Sicily. It sounds like that's a real destination, but there's untapped areas that people should explore. Tell us a little bit about sort of where you want to take people and maybe a dish or two that they might experience that represents that sort of area.
Yeah, so I think it's easy to just go to Palermo. And the thing is, when you go to Sicily, it's best if you travel with a car, because yes, there are transports, but it's not as straightforward. And the little places where I grew up going to, you can't get there with a bus. And also you need to know someone from the area to actually say, okay, you should go there. So one of the many places that I often go, it's a natural hot spring. And it's kind of like, a 20-minute drive from like the city center. And it's a bit tricky to get there because you need to go down this like really steep road and then walks through some like bamboo shoots and a little river. So it's not, you can't just like, oh, you should go there, and people go and they find it. But then you find this like beautiful natural hot spring, and with like kind of clay at the bottom, so you can like basically give yourself a kind of like a mud clay bath, whatever they're called, and it's good for your skin and just, so that's such a cute little, I always take people there in like after a big lunch on a Sunday, like, oh, I've got the best place where we can just unwind and digest all the food we just had and like properly relax. And it's, it costs zero, like it's a free spot. You just need to find it and you don't need to pay anything to go there, So yeah, that's one spot I take people to, like my friends that have been in Sicily before. And so that's somewhere where I would like to take a group of people. If they decide to come all the way, I would definitely take them there because it's surprisingly amazing. And then I have a few friends that they've all kind of like ditched their tech career and went back to hospitality. And they were lucky enough to have vineyards in the family. So they've started kind of, taking the reins of the company, the family business of making wine, and just go down the natural winemaking path, which has always been there in Sicily, but I guess it's never been commercialized enough. So just a couple of friends that I have, and only like 2 wineries, but like they're such great locations. Again, not on the map really, or you need someone to take you there, but it's like my idea is to do a partnership and take people there for a wine tasting and a tour, and then I'll be cooking either the lunch or the dinner for the group at that location, which I think it's, I don't know, if I was a tourist and I was to be taken somewhere and then a chef will be cooking there for you, I don't know, it kind of ticks all the boxes for me. And yeah, yeah, so that's something else that I like to offer in the tour.
Well, Lorena, I can't wait to see everything that you're doing next year. It sounds like it's going to be a jam-packed time. Loved having you on Deep in the Weeds again. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much, Huck. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I'll see you around.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.